We have yet another significant trough that really will start to dig out west. Yet again, will eject out into the plains. And when it does, that's going to spell more trouble for severe weather heading into Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and possibly a bigger setup heading into Monday of next week. So let's break down the details for you in this update. Take a look at the ridge of high pressure. That's pretty much going to be locked and loaded over across the eastern seaboard. That's going to keep that area high and dry and much warmer than average than what you're typically used to this time of year. We had the storms that went across the plains yesterday through Texas, back into Oklahoma, Kansas, as well as into Missouri and portions of Iowa. Now we have yet another system that will be approaching our western regions again, another trough that's going to be diving in from the Pacific Northwest. And as it does, that's going to pull down some much colder air. It's even going to be snowing in some of the mountain regions. And that's going to clash into the plains again. And that's going to set the stage for more rounds of severe weather. So if we look at the overall satellite picture, here's what's happening. So we had the line that went through the overnight hours across the plains. Now that is setting up shop across portions of Houston, back into Louisiana, as well as into Arkansas, into western Tennessee. This line of showers and thunderstorms will likely start to impact your trick-or-treating plans later this afternoon into the evening time frame. But you've got the ridge of high pressure that's baked over the eastern seaboard, keeping the drier conditions for them. And we've got the trough that will be coming in from the northwest. And then we've got our eyes on what's happening down there into the Caribbean, because this is fairly significant. In fact, the National Hurricane Center has upgraded this to a 60% probability of this forming into a tropical storm over the next 5 to 7 days. And the concern with this, because of this ridge of high pressure that's locked over this eastern seaboard, the steering currents is going to be steering this towards the United States, and that high pressure will likely keep it and push it towards the United States as well. So we may not be done. We could be yet have another tropical system in the Gulf of Mexico heading into next week. So if we look at the big picture on the jet stream, you can see what we're talking about, right? We got the ridge of high pressure locked over the eastern seaboard. We've got another more significant trough that will be diving in from the northwest. And then we have these short waves of energy, these pulses of energy, that's going to be out ahead of the much more significant trough. That's going to be able to create enough lift mechanism towards it that is going to overturn the atmosphere and produce those showers and thunderstorms, if not severe weather, heading into Friday. So the moisture returns come back. We've got precipitable water indexed about 99% of what you would typically see this time of year, meaning the atmosphere is pretty much completely saturated. So it's not going to take much, and these areas are in a desperate drought. So this is actually a good sign that you're seeing this. Unfortunately, it does have some severe storms with it, but nonetheless, we're going to be looking at another renewed surge of moisture coming in out of the Gulf of Mexico through Texas again, as well as into Oklahoma, getting into Kansas. So as we go into Saturday, there is the origination of another storm threat will likely extend into West Texas. So we're talking about those areas into San Angelo, Midland, back into Lubbock, as well as into the Amarillo region, getting into Oklahoma City, points northward into areas of western Kansas. There could be under the gun yet again for severe storms. We're talking some large hail, some damaging winds, and possibly an isolated tornado threat within the strongest activity as that dry line will start to get active out there. But going into your precipitation, because again, the water precipitation content values are going to be fairly high. So over that 24-hour period, we definitely could see some heavier rains draped across North and West Texas there. We could be picking up several inches of rainfall just during the day on Saturday, and that will likely extend into Oklahoma as well as into Kansas. Nonetheless, we have more instability coming back into the Pacific Northwest, complements of that deepening trough that will be impacting that region. But everywhere else is on the clearer skies side, especially under that ridge of high pressure for much of the mid-Atlantic and to the northeast. But going into Sunday, that's when it becomes a little bit more significant because this trough starts to dig even further. The further south it digs, the bigger it's going to be as it ejects out. So as it does, we're going to have to be concerned about on the right quadrant again of more severe storms breaking out across the southern and central plains heading into your Sunday timeframe. That could be another active period, and the Storm Prediction Center has already hinted at that on a day 4 risk now, originating back again into Kansas, the Oklahoma City region, back into portions of North Texas, getting into the Wichita Falls regions. Those are, looking at possibly all 3 modes of severe storms heading into your Sunday, on top of some of the higher, heavier rain amounts that you're likely going to receive. And there's the moisture surge. I think it even actually deepens even further. So it's a compounding effect as the atmosphere continues to become more and more saturated across this region through the plains again, through the central plains, as well as extending and back into Missouri, as well as into Illinois, as getting into Indiana and portions of Michigan there, heading into Wisconsin. And there's your 24-hour precipitation map for Sunday. So it's a compounding threat. We're talking about a lot of rain potentially over the coming days. This is what's going to likely fall over that 24-hour time span on Sunday, your November 3rd, essentially through Texas again, through Oklahoma, but this time extends it even further north, back into Iowa, those areas into Minnesota, back into the Dakotas, should be on the wet side through Illinois going into your Sunday. But there's the main event would likely unfold in more of a huge trough that will be diving, kind of a horseshoe type trough, right? This does not look good. This looks like a nasty setup for severe storms. This would likely be a significant event for severe weather heading into your Monday timeframe. If a lot of these dynamics are starting to evolve and start to come together, the moisture levels are going to be really high. The dew points are going to be high. So there's going to be plenty of compounding factors that are coming together that point to a significant severe weather threat heading into Monday. So you got the snow, and the higher elevations will likely come back for the ski resorts in New Mexico, could even clip portions of the Texas Panhandle. But out ahead of it, that's where most of the instability will lie, and that will likely lie and surge all the way into Canada with that southerly flow aloft. And here's the severe threat heading into Monday. It doesn't look like big right now because, again, this is 5 days out, but believe me, this is going to expand and deepen and likely intensify. This has a setup of a makings of a potentially moderate risk in some of these areas draped across the severe weather threat. So we're gonna have to be fine tuning this, but definitely looks like a dangerous day ahead heading into that Monday timeframe through the middle part of the country, because again, the water vapor is going to be at very high levels. Whenever you see this purple like that, that doesn't happen very often. That tells you the atmosphere is completely saturated. Then we've got the winds splitting at different heights. So we've got a lot of compounding of factors and saying, hey, this could be a dangerous day ahead, especially with the deepening area of low pressure and the Gulf is opening up for business. And once it does, that's going to be surging well north. So this would likely be extended well into Missouri, Illinois, back into Wisconsin, as well as into Indiana, getting into Michigan. This would likely be a widespread, more significant severe weather, if not severe weather outbreak heading into Monday. So that just goes into Tuesday. There's still likely going to be a line of thunderstorms continue to shift off to the east, likely not as significant, but nonetheless, we should get an elongated band of showers and thunderstorms, severe storms heading in from Louisiana through Illinois, through Indiana. That will swing all the way into southern Canada. And then now we'll have to start watching down there into the Caribbean with that system that could be looking at possibly a named storm by then. So right now, the National Hurricane Center has upped the ante again on this one, a 60% probability this is likely going to form in the next 5 to 7 days. And if it does, it'll take the name Patty. And with the high pressure center locked over the eastern seaboard, this is just going to naturally pull this further north and eventually back into the Gulf of Mexico. So it's definitely something we got to keep an eye on. It's fairly rare for a storm to hit the United States in the month of November, just because we typically have cold fronts to push them out to sea. But the problem with this one is I don't really see any cold fronts making it this far eastward. So it does open the window, especially with the high pressure locked over the East Coast, would naturally steer this whatever may develop towards the north and northbound through the Gulf of Mexico. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on into the southeast heading into the middle of next week, because a lot of the ensemble guidance is already hinting at as well. Here's the GFS spaghetti models as we lie right now over the next week, showing that formation possibility through Jamaica, through Cuba, through the Bahamas, and that we got a lot of members starting to show up now into the Gulf of Mexico. So it's something we definitely have to keep an eye on and be fine-tuning in the coming days. But nonetheless, by the time we head into Thursday, we could be dealing with an area of low pressure highlighted across the Gulf of Mexico, with more rains coming back in the picture across the plains. But overall, the colder air really continues to stay out west. We've got the troughs that only reach so far. So the western regions continue to remain on the below average side, while much of the central and eastern 2/3 and the further east you go, the more above average you're going to get throughout the week. So it still continues to remain on the well above average side through your first week of November. But if you live out west, you're going to be getting the snow, especially in the higher elevation. So the ski resorts are going to be loving it with heaviest snow, likely the heaviest snows so far of the season. And even this morning, the seasons are changing. Where you were really warm in Minnesota, we had that cold front come through, and then the dynamics really flipped and even had thunder snow in portions outside of Minneapolis this morning. So that was pretty cool to see some thunder snow happening up there in that neck of the woods. But overall, we're looking at some heavier rains, folks. This is the blend of models and the bullseye, if you will, over the coming days, over the next 7 to 10 days, as a deluge of moisture and a much bigger setup will likely unfold, bringing some beneficial rains, and if not almost flooding rains at times, through Oklahoma, through portions of Kansas, as well as into Missouri. And unfortunately, that does come in the form of severe storms. So we'll be breaking this thing down for you on a daily basis on this channel. So make sure you do hit the subscribe button. I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update. Why I protect you before and after storm.